everyone, welcome back. We're going to be putting on our finance goggles and our geopolitical scuba gear today as we take a deep dive into some really interesting market trends based on a YouTube video that you sent us with analysis by Tai Wong, who's a seasoned proprietary trader.
Right.
And we're going to be covering everything from interest rates and political maneuvering to maybe a glimmer of opportunity in the gold market.
And what's so interesting about all this is how interconnected it all really is.
Exactly.
You know, global events, politics, finance, they all kind of feed off each other.
It's all one big web. Yeah. And speaking of webs, Tai Wong uses this great phrase, the Powell-Goolsbee tug of war, to describe what's happening right now with interest rates.
Yeah.
He says that the market was practically begging for a rate cut in December.
Oh, wow.
And then, bam, Fed Chair Powell holds rates steady.
Uh-huh.
So help me understand this. Like, why are interest rates such a big deal? Why is everyone so fixated on what the Fed does?
Well, interest rates are kind of like this lever, okay? And it controls how money flows throughout the economy.
Okay.
So the rates are low, borrowing's cheaper.
Right.
Businesses, they can take out loans, invest, expand, easier to buy a house or a car.
Makes sense.
But then it can cause inflation, right? So then when inflation gets too high, the Fed's got to step in to raise those rates again.
Right.
Make borrowing more expensive, And in theory, that slows down how fast prices are rising.
Okay, so it's like a constant balancing act.
Yeah, exactly. It's always in flux.
And everyone's trying to predict what's going to happen next.
Exactly.
Yeah, so in this case, Powell kind of tapped the brakes by holding rates steady. But then you have Goolsbee, the Chicago Fed president, who is hinting at maybe lower rates next year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's confusing.
It is a little bit.
So how do we know what to believe? What should we be looking at to kind of get a better sense of where the Fed might go next?
Well, there are some economic indicators we can look at.
Okay.
So keep an eye on the PCE index.
Okay.
It's the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index, and that measures inflation.
Okay.
And then the employment report, which comes out every month.
Got it.
If inflation's still high, jobs are still strong.
Yeah.
The Fed might not cut rates anytime soon.
Right.
But if inflation cools down or the job market weakens, they might feel more comfortable easing up.
Okay, so it's like we're all trying to play this economic chess game and figure out the Fed's next move.
It is a little bit like that.
But speaking of unexpected moves, Tai Wong mentions that there are these betting markets where people are putting money on whether the Fed will raise or lower rates.
Really?
Is that a real thing?
Yeah, it is. People are putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to the Fed.
Wow.
Yeah, before Powell spoke,
yeah,
everyone thought there'd be a December cut, but now it's like a coin toss.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
It shows just how much uncertainty there is surrounding all this.
It really does.
Yeah, but let's move away from finance for a second and into politics.
Okay.
Tai Wong talks about the Trump factor and how his unorthodox style, his controversial cabinet picks are kind of influencing how the market's viewing things.
Okay.
He even talks about this story of Trump going to a UFC fight with his sons Elon Musk and Bobby Kennedy Jr.
Wow.
What do we make of all of that?
I mean, that's classic Trump, right?
Yeah.
Totally unpredictable, loves the spotlight, Definitely not typical presidential behavior. Some people might see that as a strength, breaking the mold.
Yeah.
Others might see it as impulsive or even reckless.
Right. So there are definitely different interpretations.
Absolutely.
But how does all of this translate into actual market implications?
Okay, so
specifically, how might his cabinet picks, which a lot of them are already controversial, influence things like energy policy, financial regulation, investor confidence, all that?
Well, the cabinet appointments can tell us a lot about future policies. So the markets react accordingly, right? For example, the defense secretary nominee, he's facing some serious allegations, and that could impact his confirmation, create uncertainty in the defense sector.
And there's also this big battle over who's going to be Treasury Secretary.
Exactly. Two camps.
Yeah.
One wants this former Goldman Sachs exec who really gets the markets.
Yeah.
The other wants a hedge fund manager who's tight with Trump.
Oh, wow.
And their approaches to economic policy could be totally different.
Yeah.
And that would impact taxes, trade, financial regulation, everything.
Yeah, so even before we know who's going to get the job, they're already sending ripples through the market.
Exactly.
It's like everyone's holding their breath waiting to see what happens.
Yeah. And then there's the potential energy secretary, Chris Wright.
Right.
He's a big name in fracking, and he's made some bold statements about climate change.
Okay.
Like now I'm playing the risks, even drank fracking fluid on TV once to show it's safe.
Oh, wow. That's an image that's hard to forget.
Right.
So how do his views on climate change line up with the current administration?
Yeah.
And how might this impact U.S. energy production?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
The administration says they support domestic energy production, including fossil fuels. But they've also said they understand climate change is real.
Okay.
That we need clean energy.
So it's a tough one.
Yeah, and with right, it could mean a shift to more fossil fuel-focused policy.
Okay.
Which could affect regulations, investments in renewables, even America's role in those global climate agreements.
Yeah, so this is a big appointment.
It is.
It could have big implications both here and abroad.
For sure.
Before we move on, I want to bring you, the listener, into a conversation. We've talked about a lot so far.
We have.
So what's one thing that stood out to you? What's resonated, surprised you, made you think differently?
We really want to hear from you.
We'll be right back after a quick break.
Yeah, don't go anywhere.
All right, we're back and ready to dig even deeper into these topics.
Yeah.
It's amazing how even something like a president-elect at a UFC fight can really affect global markets and investor confidence.
It really can.
It's all connected.
It is. And speaking of connections, let's go back to interest rates for a second.
Okay.
Remember the Powell-Goolsbee tug-of-war we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, Taiwan points out that all this uncertainty actually impacts people like you.
Okay, help me connect the dots there.
Sure.
How does this interest rate uncertainty, actually affect people's everyday financial decisions?
Well, think about it. If you're thinking about refinancing your mortgage or taking out a loan for something big, interest rates play a huge role in how much that loan's going to cost you.
Right.
If rates are low, you can lock in lower monthly payments, save money in the long run. But if rates go up, those loans get more expensive.
That's true.
Could really mess with your budget and your plan.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, and the Fed's decisions directly affect these rates.
So we really need to pay attention.
You got it.
Yeah, because it's not just numbers on a screen.
Right.
This is affecting real people.
Absolutely.
Making real decisions about their money.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of real people, let's get back to those controversial cabinet appointments.
Okay.
Taiwan mentions a potential scandal with the defense secretary nominees.
Right. Pete Hegseth?
Yeah, what's the story there, and how might this affect his chances of getting confirmed?
Well, it's complicated. Hegseth is facing these allegations of sexual assault.
Oh, wow.
From a while back, and even though charges were never filed, he reportedly paid the accuser to stay quiet. And this has raised concerns with some senators.
Understandably.
They're questioning if he's right for the job.
Right.
So it's possible this controversy could stop his nomination.
Yeah.
But we've also seen Trump stick by his people even when things get tough.
That's true.
So we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, definitely something to watch.
Okay, and what about the battle for Treasury Secretary?
Oh, yeah, it's a big one.
You mentioned like a clash of titans going on there.
Yeah, basically we've got two totally different schools of thought here.
Okay.
So in one corner, you've got Scott Minich, ex-Goldman Sachs guy.
Yeah.
Knows the markets inside and out.
Right.
He's seen as the more traditional pick, probably favors a careful approach to economic policy.
Okay.
Then you've got Steve Mnuchin, hedge fund manager close to Trump.
Yeah, okay.
He's known for his success in the private sector, so he might be more in line with Trump's ideas.
Right, like deregulation, tax cuts.
Yes.
Are two very different styles.
Very different.
And whoever gets the job could really change the direction of the U.S. economy.
Absolutely. It's a huge decision.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Chris Wright now.
Okay.
Potential energy secretary.
Right.
You said he's a bit controversial, known for his statements about climate change.
Yeah.
So how might his views and background impact U.S. energy policy?
Yeah, especially with those global climate negotiations coming up.
Right.
What Wright's appointment has definitely raised some eyebrows.
I bet.
Both here and around the world. His skepticism about climate change and his ties to fracking suggest we might see a shift to a more fossil fuel-focused policy.
Okay.
And this could have implications for all sorts of things: domestic regulations, investments in renewables, Americans' role in those international climate agreements.
Right.
Some countries, especially the ones pushing for stronger action on climate change, they might see this as a sign that the U.S. is backing away from its commitments.
Wow. So one appointment can really send a strong signal.
Yeah, it really can.
It's a reminder that these issues are all connected.
Absolutely.
And what happens here can affect the whole world.
It really can.
Okay, let's bring it back to a more individual level for a second.
Okay.
Taiwan suggests that the dip in gold prices lately could be a good buying opportunity.
Oh, interesting.
Especially for people who want to hedge against inflation or economic uncertainty.
Okay.
What do you think? Is gold a smart investment right now? And how should someone who's not a financial expert like myself even approach that decision?
That's a great question. And, a lot of people are wondering the same thing.
Yeah.
Gold has always been seen as a safe haven asset.
Okay.
Meaning when things are uncertain economically, investors tend to flock to it. So when stocks and bonds are all over the place, gold often holds its value or even goes up in price.
So it's like a financial security blanket.
Exactly.
When times are tough.
Yeah, but whether it's a smart investment right now really depends.
On what?
On your own financial goals, your risk tolerance, your overall investment strategy.
Okay.
If you're worried about inflation eating away at your savings, or if you want to diversify your portfolio, reduce your exposure to riskier assets, gold might be worth considering.
Okay.
But remember, gold doesn't generate income like stocks or bonds do.
Right.
And its price can go up and down depending on what's happening globally.
So it's not a sure thing.
No, and it's not right for everyone.
So do your research understand the risks?
Yeah.
And figure out how gold fits into your overall financial plan?
Exactly. And, maybe talk to a financial advisor.
Yeah, that's always a good idea.
Especially if you're new to this type of investing.
Right. Okay, let's switch gears again and talk about what's happening with Russia and Ukraine.
Okay.
Taiwan mentions those devastating strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure.
Wait, as winter's coming.
Yeah, it's a heartbreaking situation.
It really is.
And it's easy to feel helpless when it feels so far away.
Yeah.
But why does this conflict matter even for those of us not directly involved?
It's easy to get caught up in our own lives and think these global events are happening in a different world.
Right.
But the truth is, we're all connected.
We are.
What happens in one place can affect us all.
That's true.
And the conflict in Ukraine has already impacted global energy markets.
How so?
Well, it's contributed to higher oil and gas prices everywhere.
Oh, wow.
It's disrupted supply chains, too.
Okay.
Leading to shortages and price increases for various goods.
Wow.
And then there's the geopolitical side of things.
Right.
The war has really increased tensions between Russia and the West.
Yeah.
And that's raised concerns about a new Cold War.
That's scary.
Yeah. And the potential for even more conflicts.
So this is a big deal.
It is. Peace and stability are fragile.
Yeah.
And conflicts, even those that seem far away, can have real consequences for all of us.
It's true. Okay, let's talk about climate change now.
Okay.
Something that's been an issue for decades.
Right.
Taiwan mentions the COP29 summit coming up.
Yeah.
And the debate over the 1.5-degree target, which scientists say is super important to avoid the worst effects of climate change.
Absolutely.
But he says it's probably not attainable.
It is a tough goal.
So why are we holding on to a goal that seems impossible?
It's complicated.
Yeah.
There's the science, the politics, and even psychology involved.
Okay.
So scientifically, that 1.5-degree target, it represents a point of no return.
Okay.
Beyond that, the risks of catastrophic climate change skyrocket.
So it's not just a random number.
No, it's based on the best evidence we have.
Right.
But reaching it means huge immediate cuts to greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah.
And a lot of countries just aren't willing to do that.
Why not?
Well, there's the economic side of it, political pressure, and no real agreement on how to share the burden of those emission cuts fairly.
So politically, it's a tough sell.
Yeah.
It sounds like science is clashing with political reality.
It is. And then there's the psychology of it all.
Okay.
That 1.5-degree target has become a symbol of hope.
Yeah.
A rallying cry for action. Giving up on it, even if the science supports it, could feel like admitting defeat.
Right.
And it might make people less supportive of climate policies.
So it's like we need to keep that target.
Yeah.
Even if it's hard to reach, just to keep people motivated.
Exactly.
Keep the sense of urgency.
Exactly. Okay, now let's zoom back in on the U.S. economy.
Okay.
Taiwan says those retail earnings reports coming up
are
a key indicator of how confident consumers are feeling.
Okay.
And how much they're spending.
Makes sense. So what should we be watching for in those reports?
Keep an eye on same-store sales.
Okay.
That measures growth at existing stores.
Got it.
And holiday sales forecasts.
Okay.
Which shows what retailers expect for the big shopping season.
Right.
Those numbers can tell us a lot about how consumers are feeling about the economy and whether they're willing to spend money.
So if the results are good, it means consumers are feeling confident the economy's healthy.
Exactly. But if the results are weak,
it
could mean people are holding back on spending.
Interesting.
Maybe worried about inflation, interest rates, or just overall uncertainty.
So it's like we're checking the pulse of the American consumer.
Exactly.
Their spending habits can tell us a lot about how the economy is really doing.
Exactly. And speaking of checking the pulse of an industry, let's talk about NVIDIA, the company that's become synonymous with AI.
Right.
Their earnings reports are always a big deal.
Yeah.
Because they're seen as a barometer for the entire AI industry.
Okay, so what are your predictions for their next report? And what are some of the broader trends in AI that we should be paying attention to?
Well, NVIDIA has been doing incredibly well. driven by the huge growth of AI applications across all sorts of industries.
Right.
Their chips are everywhere.
Yeah.
From data centers to self-driving cars.
It's amazing.
So their earnings give us a glimpse into how AI is being adopted and how it's advancing.
Okay.
I think their next report will be strong.
Uh-huh.
But investors will be looking for any hint of slowing growth.
Right.
Or increased competition, which could signal a change in the market.
Makes sense. And as for broader trends, what should we be watching?
Keep an eye on generative AI.
Okay.
It's AI that can create new content.
Like what?
Text, images, music, even code.
Wow.
And we're seeing it being used more and more across different sectors.
Like where?
Marketing, entertainment, healthcare, education.
So this is big.
It is, imagine personalized learning tailored to each student, or AI tools that help doctors diagnose diseases more accurately.
That's incredible.
It is. It's a really exciting time to be following AI.
It is, but it also raises some questions
Yeah.
about the ethics of such powerful technology.
You're right.
As AI gets more sophisticated, how do we make sure it's developed and used responsibly?
That's a key question.
And what are some of the risks?
Yeah, you've hit on a crucial point.
Yeah.
AI advancements come with huge opportunities, but also potential risks.
Right.
We need to talk openly about these things.
Yeah.
And develop safeguards to prevent harm.
So what are some of the concerns?
Well, one big one is bias in algorithms.
Okay.
AI systems learn from massive amounts of data.
Right.
And if that data reflects existing societal biases, the AI can actually make those biases worse.
Oh, wow.
Leading to unfair or discriminatory outcomes.
That's a problem.
It is. So it's not enough to just build powerful AI.
Right.
We have to make sure it's designed and used ethically.
With fairness and justice in mind.
Exactly.
Okay, before we get to our final thoughts,
Yeah.
let's hear from you, our listener, again.
We want to hear from you.
We've covered a lot today.
We have.
From global conflicts to economic trends,
Yeah.
climate change to technology.
That's a lot.
It is. So what's one insight you've gained from this deep dive?
Yeah.
Something you can apply to your own life or work.
We're really interested to hear your takeaways.
We are back. Those were some great insights from our listeners. It's so good to hear how they're connecting with this stuff.
Yeah, it really shows how much people are paying attention and trying to make sense of it all.
Exactly. So let's zoom back out now and revisit the conflict in Ukraine.
Okay.
We talked about the immediate impact, but what about the long-term consequences? What are you most worried about when you think about the ripple effects of this war?
Well, one thing that really concerns me is the potential damage to global cooperation. You know, diplomacy.
Yeah.
This war has brought back all those Cold War anxieties.
Right.
Shattered trust between countries.
Yeah.
And it's exposed how fragile those international institutions really are.
Yeah.
And this lack of trust.
Yeah.
It can make it really hard to address other global issues.
Like what?
Like climate change, economic instability, things like that.
So it's not just about the immediate crisis.
Right.
It's about the potential for a more divided and unstable world.
Exactly.
Yeah, with more conflict.
Yeah, and a breakdown of the systems that are supposed to prevent those conflicts.
It's a scary thought. Okay, and what about the economic fallout?
Oh, that could last for years.
Really?
Yeah, the war has messed up supply chains, fueled inflation, created uncertainty in the markets.
Right.
And that could all lead to slower economic growth and less investment globally.
So these consequences could be felt for generations.
They really could. They're impacting jobs, social safety nets, all sorts of things.
It's like one thing leads to another, and we might not even see the full extent of the damage for years.
It's true, but, you know, let's shift gears for a minute.
Okay.
And talk about climate change.
Right.
We discussed that 1.5-degree target and all the challenges surrounding it.
Right.
But even if we don't hit that specific goal, are there any positive developments or trends in the fight against climate change that give you hope?
Yeah. Are there any great spots?
Absolutely. Despite how daunting this challenge is, there are signs of hope popping up all over.
Okay, like what?
Well, renewable energy technologies keep getting better, more efficient, more affordable, and easier to access.
That's good.
And we're seeing more and more businesses and investors becoming aware of climate change.
Yeah.
Which means more money is being invested in clean energy, sustainable practices, green technologies.
So it sounds like the market is starting to align with the need for climate action.
It is, which is a really good sign, and we can't forget about those grassroots movements.
Right.
Individuals taking action.
Yeah.
More people are making choices to reduce their carbon footprint, support sustainable businesses, advocate for policies that address climate change.
So it's a collective effort.
Exactly. Every little bit helps.
It really does. It's a good reminder that even when things seem impossible, Human ingenuity and collective action can make a difference.
Absolutely. And speaking of human ingenuity,
yeah.
let's get back to technology and those NVIDIA earnings.
Okay.
You mentioned they're a bellwether for the AI industry.
Right.
Which is moving so fast.
It is. So what are some of the trends in AI that have caught your eye lately?
Well, one that's really interesting is generative AI.
Okay, remind me what that is again?
So it's AI that can create new content.
Oh, yeah.
Everything from text and images to music and even computer code.
Wow.
And we're seeing it being used in so many different sectors.
Like what?
Marketing, entertainment, healthcare, education, all sorts of things.
So this is pretty revolutionary.
It really is. Imagine personalized learning for each student.
Yeah.
Or AI tools that help doctors diagnose diseases more accurately.
It sounds like AI has the potential to change so many aspects of our lives.
It really does, both at work and at home.
But as we embrace these advancements, we have to be mindful of the ethical implications.
You're absolutely right.
So as AI gets more powerful, what are some of the risks we need to be thinking about?
One major concern is bias in algorithms.
Okay.
Remember, AI systems learn from huge amounts of data.
Right.
And if that data contains societal biases,
yeah,
the AI can actually make those biases worse.
Right.
Which leads to unfair or discriminatory outcomes.
So we have to be really careful.
We do. It's not enough to just build powerful AI.
Yeah.
We have to make sure it's designed and used ethically.
With fairness and justice at the forefront.
Exactly. And we also need to think about the impact on jobs.
Okay.
As AI systems get smarter, they can do more and more tasks that humans used to do.
Right.
Which means some people might lose their jobs.
That's a real concern.
It is. So we need to be proactive about retraining people.
Yeah.
Helping them learn new skills.
So they can adapt to these changes.
Exactly. And we have to make sure that everyone benefits from AI.
Right.
Not just a select few.
It's about using technology to create a better future for everyone.
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into this complex world of interconnected challenges, what's one step you, the listener, can take?
Yeah.
Inspired by what we've talked about today to make a positive impact in your own life or community?
That's a good question.
It doesn't have to be something huge.
Yeah.
You could try to reduce your carbon footprint.
Okay.
Support a local business.
Yeah.
Have a thoughtful conversation about a tough issue. Or just keep learning and exploring.
Those are all great ideas.
Every action, no matter how small, can make a difference.
I love that. So remember, knowledge is a journey, not a destination.
Keep learning, keep asking questions.
Stay curious.
Exactly. And we'll see you in the next deep dive.
See you then.